The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.
Happy Holy Day, Moors, and welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for the exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are an awakening center for spiritual grounding, free thought, and self-discovery, and also Moorish science. A learning experience for all ages. Tonight, our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey, and I will present Feudal Law Theft, Executive Order 6102. But before we begin, please be sure to like, share, and if you have not already done so, subscribe to our channel. Greetings, everyone.
Islam, Dr. G.
Islam, Grand Sheik.
Back again, continuing the work.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah, while they're trying to cover up and create crisis so they can have an excuse to crash the system that's already broke.
Wow.
Well, you already know because we've been talking about this for years.
Yeah, it's a lot going on in the last 24 hours or less. So
not surprising because we already knew years ago it was coming. We just try to prepare the people for it so they could take a choice and prepare their lives to limit the damage.
Absolutely.
While molding or forming their families or organizing to make adjustments as necessary.
Well, tonight's topic is the irony of it is that when I asked you what we were going to talk about, you gave me, this topic. We were kind of late putting it up, but you gave it to me early, I guess.
Really, last minute.
Early yesterday.
Working, and I was actually
so.
Out, yeah.
And I said to you, well, what's the subject matter? And I went on and did my own little research, and then I came up with, what it was. And actually, for those of you who are not familiar with Executive Order 6102, which was signed by FDR on April 5th, 1933.
Yes.
This was the executive order that virtually stole the gold from literally stole everybody's gold.
Threatened the people.
Right. Gave them, forbid you to own gold. That you had, if you already owned gold, you had to turn it in by the end of that month of April 1933, or face $10,000 fine or imprisonment.
Yes.
For not turning in your gold. And I believe in exchange for turning in your gold, you got some, I guess some minutia when it came down. Was it certificates or notes?
In other words, they're foreign bills of exchange,
right,
essentially.
Right.
And keep in mind, foreign bills of exchange are unlawful. Because it by implied contractual order, it invokes a third party interloper with whom you have no contract. That third party interloper would be actually, City of London, via the Circle Church and Chancery, the Bar Association, and members of that Bar Association who are what you would call trustee members for the United States Corporation Company, which went bankrupt, that as the Board of Governors for the Federal Reserve. All foreign, non-elected, and all profiting and waging war on the people. Now, again, one of the things that we want to remind you of, because, we could make an expansive analysis, but we want to bring these things to your attention. Remember that any and every so-called public official that takes any public office must take a solemn oath on the Constitution for the United States in order to be valid to hold that office, with limited jurisdictional powers that are described to the department or to the office held. And it's supposed to be there for the public record, including traditionally, on top of taking an oath to enforce the Constitution, they also sign an oath of ethics. So look for those two documents at all times whenever you're making reference or communicating with anyone that claims to have authority in government, or who makes any claims of debt against any living man or woman, assumed to be and not necessarily being a so-called citizen of their corporation or of the nationals of the land. And as you all know, the diversity issue of making those distinctions are verified via Article 3, Section 2 in diversity of the Constitution for the United States. So you already know you have those different classifications. And so this would fit or demonstrate those who are taxable and what the conditions are by apportionment, and those who are not based on their status. Keep that in mind.
I picked up the wrong book.
Now, I want to bring this to your attention also. So everyone write this down, these names down, and we'd like to see if you have knowledge of the public record of who you've been paying tax to, all right, via their corporation company. Now, most of you already know and are aware of the last registration number of the Articles of Incorporation. And these are the Articles of Incorporation. So screenshot it. See the numbers? 00009.
This starts with a 1, doesn't it?
Right. The one, yeah.
Or is that,
No.
That's not a 1?
No.
Okay.
All right. Now, also keep in mind the date presented, and it was filed 7/15/1925. So what's the calculation before Roosevelt signed the theft of the gold against the people?
8 years?
33?
Yeah.
All right.
Right. Almost 8 years.
So you deal July the 15th, 1925. Now, these are the owners of the corporation: Lewis H. Gunther, Samuel B. Howard, and Arthur V. Britton. That's Lewis H. Gunther, Samuel B. Howard, and Arthur V. Britton. Are you familiar with any of these men who own the United States Corporation Company? I'm sure, because it's public record, that the politicians who've been taxing these people would have told them that, who they're really paying taxes to, right?
I'm not sure that people realize that there, are quote unquote owners. And I remember there's a brother I met a couple of years ago who had some experiences with ex-ETs. He domiciled at Shakamoxon. And I remember having a conversation with him about a man he met who was an owner of the United States of America. And this was within the last 2 years, 2, 3 years.
Then he would be an owner by corporate succession.
Right. So when you have the ones that initially filed the papers, but as people have died, transitioned, or whatever, but they always have to have new corporate board members, so to speak, which would be sort of like the owners. But he said he literally was proving or that he owned it. I was thinking, how could he own? But at that time, I wasn't thinking in terms
and
of.
And again, this is where people need to understand they have right to that ownership. However, that ownership to that corporation has nothing to do with you. And what they've been doing is fronting their corporation as the country. That's the deception. That's the fraud. That's the misprision.
Okay.
And just like we always talk, Dr. G, one of the major problems that we have with people is many people can't wrap their heads around the fact that the United States is really a private corporation because they've been trained from childhood that it's a country.
Absolutely.
And no different than, even though, informationally and by documentation, we show to people that George Washington wasn't the first president, he was the ninth. And yet you'll see people still operate as if George Washington was the first president of the agreed treaty and constitution operating on the land. Now, logically, when you recognize that what they have displayed for the general public is not true, it lets you know that they're starting off with a fraud. Problem that you have is that people psychologically still render to them authority that's not vested with them or in them. And they're using that authority actually to rob the people. But the people, for the most part, don't see it because that's the mental block that they owe this to, quote unquote, our country or service to our country mentality, And of course, when people approach it, they approach it from an emotional, obligatory and dedicated perspective without examining what they're actually doing. No different than, like, say, for instance, look how simple this is, Dr. J.
Mm-hmm.
They will teach the children in elementary school, right? And they will teach them a pledge,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Allegiance.
And that pledge, they'll say, I pledge allegiance to the
flag
flag of the United States of America
and to the
republic for
for
which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they would present that to the people and absolutely act totally opposite from it. And then turn around and tell the people that they're fighting or giving up their lives for democracy. I mean, it's blunt. It's in your face,
mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So it's not like it's hidden. So it's not like it takes a what you would call a PhD scholar to figure out that these people are operating in a state of treason. However, by most people approaching these things from an emotional, blind, just like blind faith that they do in dogmatic religion, they approach it the same way. And so they've gotten used to being able to lie to the people directly in their faces and recognize that the people are well molded for capitulation. But what the people, for the most part, don't recognize is that they discussed this among themselves and it was planned.
Who is they?
When we say they, we'll talk about the owners and those who are party members of the Whiggamore party, which are conscience Whigs and cotton Whigs, and they're meeting later,
You're talking Jekyll Island?
No, at Philadelphia.
Oh, we're talking
in 54.
Okay.
That's in 54. 1854.
Okay.
And so the foundation of the fraud has early roots.
Let's back up a little bit. So for those who may not be aware, when you say the conscience Whigs and the cotton Whigs,
all right,
you're talking, let me make sure I have the correct understanding. So when you're saying it's made up of conscience Whigs and cotton Whigs, when some folks talk about one bird, two wings,
yeah, that's what
we're talking about the fact that there is a togetherness, a partness of this soul situation. In other words, they're connected to the same thing. However,
good cop, bad cop politics.
Right. So there's two sides of the same coin.
And what you call controlled opposition.
Okay. So we were
and
talking.
So the perception to the public is that you have separate parties.
We were talking today about the as you say, assignment of Donald J. of Trump. And it seems as if he chose one side rather than the other to present his position. However, he has no real allegiance
attachment
to either of them.
And you can tell even the way his whole term in office, the people or the members of the conscience Whigs were undermining him at every point.
Right. So the conscience Whigs would be who we would call the Republican, so-called Republican Party.
Now, and so we have to, in order for the people to start getting their heads straight, we have to start telling the truth of what they're really dealing with, although their concepts is that they're dealing with something else.
Right.
So we have to remind them that the legitimate government is a republic, even though they're trained to think that the legitimate government is a feudal democracy.
Okay.
Right. And because most people don't do research, they just assume that if a politician says this is so, then it manifests as law. They don't even need to see a bill or an article supporting it.
Now, some will make the argument, especially to us Moors, that we shouldn't even worry about it one way or another, because we're not U.S. citizens and we really shouldn't be voting. But we have down through the years, so let's be there. Right, however, what I was going to say is what a lot of the parties have conditioned their constituents to believe is that if you're a Democrat, or I guess the same thing for Republican, I guess, but I know in the Democratic Party that you vote the party ticket, irregardless to what somebody's moral or whatever the legitimacy of their platforms or what it may or may not mean to the good of you.
Even
and yours.
That statement
right.
exposes what?
To me, it's
an arbitrary position, not a free will or choice position.
Right. So, but when folks will willingly, when they will blatantly see the corruption, or they'll blatantly, plainly see what is evident to those who are actually looking from an unbiased state, what's going on, and yet, as you say, capitulate to that which is obviously not in the best interests of the country that they're supposed to.
The experience has shown that.
Right. We're seeing that now. And what saddens me most is people like us who, I'm thinking, are they really that stupid, or is it really
kind of yes?
Or
kind of yes.
Are they really that bought and paid for?
Yes.
Or are they really that brain damaged or programmed?
Kind of yes.
Kind of all that.
Kind of yes.
Okay. Because I'm like,
and let's look at this honestly, Dr. J. Just as you presented obvious facts, right?
Yeah.
What is the tendency of most of us to immediately start doing? Defending the ignorance because of the soft heart and the wish and the desire that everyone would be balanced, justly treated, not be abused, and not be imposed upon by persons who are exercising sovereignty power vested in seats of government.
Right.
With basic justice.
Right. We would
and
hope.
Of course, Eve would hope. It's not supposed to be hope.
I know.
Why? You have a constitution.
Certain things are supposed to be a given. They
are.
They are inalienable, rights.
See, unlike, say, you are or anyone just simply talking what their opinion and emotions are, is different from someone who takes a pledge and an oath with a concise written constitution and law that clearly describes their position, clearly describes their job position, and they take an oath upon it. And in accord with the law, if they break that oath, the designation is treason and the reward is death. That's known before time. That's not where someone goes or runs for a political office and then start making up what that office is as they go along, or for their party, and then you have to vote for that party. You can't deviate. In other words, what I'm displaying and sharing Dr. G, is how blatantly that they're operating in a feudal platform and the people are not questioning it or even rejecting it, which is back to your earlier statement. And I said, yep, a little bit of that, you know, and one of the things that we have a tendency to do is because it's our family members, past and present, and rather than admit that they're compromised or mentally deficient or have the mentality of a minor, where a man can tell them that a taffy is a car tire and they keep voting for a car tire and they tell them they can't vote for anything else and they have to vote for all the rest of the car tires, and these car tires keep running over their children generation after generation. Then these people give them a choice of voting for the other part of the party who's going to fix what they keep breaking. Then they go through the same cycle again with unkept promises, and they get run over by car tires just less.
You know what I was thinking today? I was sort of like that. I don't know what we were talking, but I was thinking of what we were talking, and maybe I was talking to Valerie today. Shout out to Val. Thank you for always listening to me, sis. But the fact of the matter is, when we're talking about conscience and cotton wigs, you know, right wing, left wing, I was telling, I think it was Val. I was telling Val, because she's, you know, learning, you know, as she hangs out with me 4 days a week, she gets an earful. And I was telling her that Obama, I think I was telling her, Obama grew up as a I don't want to call him the godson, but almost like the godson of George Bush Sr. And I said, so I'm just giving you an example. I said, he was a Republican, and but he was groomed by a Republican to take a Democratic position of power, because the people who were being targeted by that positioning or selection were actually embracing the party. So they could have put him either way, depending on where the need was.
Because it doesn't matter.
Because it really doesn't matter.
What? Because what? They're
the same
wings of the same bird.
Yes. Yes.
And it's not unknown.
I think it's unknown by the general public, but it's not unknown.
Now, let's go back to your earlier statement. Repeat some of your earlier statements.
Oh, I said, hold on.
We have to accept that the people are what?
Uninformed, ill-informed, well, not uneducated.
They've been ill-informed. They've been does programmed. Not make democracy,
ignorance of the law,
so plant republic.
Right. Yeah.
Nor does it make it mean something it doesn't.
I never remember during my time in school, elementary, junior high, or high school, being told the difference between a republic, a form of government, and a democracy. Now, it was not something that was explained, even though we did that pledge.
All right. Yeah. Now, yourself, myself, and others. In my time when I was younger, I was drafted against my will into the Army for the U.S. Corporation Company. Now, I was rebellious from day one because I was already rebellious anyway, by my nature, if you get the point. However, the deal of it is, of what does the war manual, because remember you deal in military, right? What does the military war manual say about the democracy and the republic? As an example, how many of our friends, and I got some that I could name, that went to war for the United States Corporation Company didn't come home? As a matter of fact, a very close friend of mine who I went to school with, George Stevens, right, stepped off the helicopter and received an ounce and a half of lead through his brain. So he didn't come home. I have many friends who were both European friends and Asiatic friends who were going to Germany, about 98 of them died on the plane that I decided not to get on.
Yeah, y'all for those
Right.
of you, real quick, because the story, but 1966,
Mm-hmm.
when Grand Sheik was being deployed, along with his whole the company, you know,
headquarters.
He decided he decided that voice that said leave.
Said get up now, leave.
So he,
I looked around and what I don't, you know what I mean, but
they're in the airport. They're in the airport getting ready to be deployed, and he finally decides, you know what, I'm going. And what you do? Take your camera and you're sitting.
I had a Yashica A double reflex camera. Those of you who are camera buffs and geeks know that the Yashica A is one of your best cameras ever made, and it's a Japanese camera. And and that's even then, the pictures were so very clear and precise. It's almost like almost three-dimensional.
But quality. what did you do? You in that camera? What happened?
I took some civvies out of my duffel bag. Because originally I went to the bathroom because I didn't want to look stupid looking around who was talking to me. Because no one's behind me. Right? Because we're sitting watching planes land and take off. And so I didn't want to look stupid because I'm trying, what the hell? You know, so
now he's like 20 years old when this happened.
And I took my Yashica A camera and some civvies, that's clothes, civilian clothes, out of my duffel bag. I went to the bathroom, got dressed. I went to Carmel, California, Joe's Point, and started taking pictures of the fields of clover and the seals at Joe's at the Rock. Beautiful seals and stuff. You could see down in the water. It was beautiful.
Come on.
Anyway, so when I came back to headquarters company, one of my friends, actually from Pennsauken, Jersey, right, friend of mine who I also went to school with, named James Garner, said, I was coming down the street. We thought you were dead. I said, what are you talking about? I said, I went AWOL. I gotta, refresh my MO. I already know they don't get me for being AWOL. I didn't tell him about my experience. I'm just telling him, right? And he said, everybody on the plane is dead. They crashed on Gene Autry's
Ranch, yeah.
Right? And so I was supposed to be on that plane. Now I was already rebel, if you get the point. And there's more after that, with my experience.
Right, what you went through. But but that, to me, if ever there was a case of divine providence, that was one. Without going all into it, what I'm saying is, had you not listened, there was a we have guidance, and had you not listened to that, how many hundreds of thousands of people, including myself, may not have had the benefit of the knowledge that you have been able to.
We just sharing.
Yeah, well, what you're sharing, but we would have gotten it, from somewhere else. But I'm just saying, the fact is that, like, for such a time as this, you were preserved in order to be able to do. You could have just as easily, just, as you say, capitulated with everybody else and went aboard, not knowing that this whole flight was doomed. But you had to do what you're doing, have been doing over the last 40 plus years, and are doing, and still doing to this day. And that says a lot for the significance of your presence, for, as long as you've been here. Because you've said to me on many occasions, you personally felt, and the more I learned about NDEs, and my sister had one, and others, and people who leave their bodies and say it's better out there than it is stuck in here. You've said, time and time again, you could have been gone if it had not been.
Even when I was two, when I was two, I had pneumonia.
Right.
And my father took me to Cooper Hospital in Camden, right?
Yeah.
And I was really so bad that they just sent me home with my dad. They said, there's nothing we can do. He's too far gone, right? And so my father brought me home, and he was breathing in my mouth and sucking my nose constantly. And I remember my father dropped me he fell asleep, dropped me, right? And I remember him picking me up and, you know, sucking on my nose and stuff like that. So basically,
breathing, like keeping you here.
That was another church. That was another.
Right. So
that
what?
Was the first time.
Right. So I'm saying though, through all of the, you know, they say we come with at least 5 exit strategies each in each lifetime. So we know 2 of them at least, and you may have had others. Y'all can look down the think time you don't look down the barrel of a gun or somebody you were facing a head-on collision that was just averted or something.
That was another one on White Horse Pike.
There's, you know, the car. Yeah. So we've had so many things, but when you know, when you, and this is a, you know, I'm digressing, but when you know your purpose, you know, and you are convicted to stay by it, even though your flesh may like, I don't want to do this, but when you realize that you didn't come here for you.
No.
You know, we don't do this for us, you know, because for me personally, there's a whole bunch of things I'd rather be doing a lot of the time. You know, I kind of like checked out over the last 2 or 3, 4 weeks. People are like, what's up with you? I've been on for, you know, all the Tuesdays and all that. But sometimes, you know, you got to back up for your own mental.
And start analyzing.
Yeah.
You know,
why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I on my own purpose? Is the ego involved in this and stuff? Or is it, you know, am I really doing a greater service to greater humanity? Or is this a thing about me? And you have to get there. And then, you know,
work that out.
We need you got to work that stuff out, and you got to be, you know, you got to be human and divine.
You got to know what's up.
Absolutely. And so, but anyway, and I don't even know how we got over there, but because we were talking, you know, today about the fact that, you know, the whole thing, first of all, shout out to Dr. Kia Pruitt.
Yeah.
Shout out to Dr. Kia Pruitt. Dr. Kia, we love you. We love you, love you, love you. And this morning.
And we need more like her.
Absolutely.
Working, reporting, and getting the work done.
Getting the real. She did an EBS, emergency broadcast system, her EBS message today, and you know, she put us, you know, and you know, on point to know exactly, because I didn't know anything, about what was going on with those of the, you know, with the tech system. All I know is that last night I kept trying to send out flash drives and I couldn't. PayPal wouldn't let me do my shipping, and I kept saying, why it wouldn't let me do any shipping? Wouldn't let me do any shipping. And something else I did, and I couldn't do it. And then I find out, I get a text that she's on live. She'd been on maybe 45 minutes when I saw the text, and I just, you know, listened, and you know, she was on for about 4 hours, giving us getting
that work done,
the work done, and giving us the encouragement that these things have to happen in order for things to move to the next level. And that's why,
the old must come down for the new to be restored.
And what you said to me when we were in the car was the fact that this is just a continuation of Rex 84. It has never ceased.
They changed the names and the titles for unum sanctum operations that never ended.
Right.
You know, and of course, one of the arts of deception is for the time cycles, they would change the military title in order to deceive the people, so that the people would think that they, by virtue of their controlled opposition, improved or changed or ceased existing policy that was damaging the people. As an example, no different like when, you know, when we're talking, and I reminded the people of when, you know, Pope Francis called the motu proprio and had all of the people, many civic leaders and religious leaders from around the world, from all the so-called religions, and promised to cease and desist the doctrine of discovery. And everyone was kissing his hand and all that stuff. And then I reminded the people that the letter on the heliacal rising of Sirius from behind the sun, which constitutes the black sun, etc., which is July the 4th, not independence the way they've been telling you. Okay. And that letter was issued to Barack H. Obama relative for them to cease and desist. And of course, they breached that, the motu proprio of 2013, and then they came with that letter to Obama, which with the assistance of Anna von Rees, as you already know, which we mentioned for years.
Right.
And logically, people who have limited geopolitical knowledge can only take it for what they see, and logically, because of the consistent abuses and misrepresentations to our people, many people didn't trust necessarily the position that she was taking, not that whether it made sense or not, but from who it was being issued from, if you get the point.
Mm-hmm.
But once you know the geopolitics and have a background in the operations of the colorable or de facto acts of the Board of Trustees of the Congress for the Circle Church and Chancery, you can see it. Now, of course, as you already know, and as you were saying, because of misinformation, people assumed they would move on their emotional response and not on any what you call documented operations, or even dawn on them these executive orders, which are feudal operations, very clearly. Absolutely feudal.
Now, we realize that there, and I don't know which all they were, but I understand that there were some executive orders that were significant that were already in recent years that were put in, say, during the Trump administration, that as soon as the Biden administration was administrative change, these are things that are able to be overturned or to.
Now, part is what you already know: controlled opposition,
Mm-hmm.
relative to the conscience wigs and the cotton wigs. However, Donald Trump didn't fit the mold.
Okay.
Now, because of the monopoly, arbitration, or arbitrary monopoly of feudal operations, for those who know of the Organic Act of Congress 1871, know that the platform itself, the total platform, is corrupted. Therefore, anything or anyone that came into those offices that implied or even discussed restoration of the republic
Mm-hmm.
is automatically an enemy of the corporate state. Automatically.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what their so-called platform is. In other words, you already know that they know that this is all theater for the public.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they have to wait and weigh out whether or not this man is sincere. Now, people who don't know are looking at personality, what they think they are, whether they have fiat or not, these type of, and whatever the controlled narrative is coming from mainstream media, as an example. And you already know the whole time that Donald Trump was holding the praetor's position, that he was being attacked from both sides. And they were more or less tolerating him because he was holding the office.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, they already know that that office is about 17 steps down from real rulers. So the masses don't look at it this way, because the masses are trained in school that the president is the most powerful man
True.
in political office. But those who know the geopolitics knows that that's a public misconception by design.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not talked about. Why? Because they don't want the people to know that the judicial system that so-called protects Constitution and treaty law, which is known as the supreme law of the land, are all compromised. All of them, top to bottom. So from a political perspective, they're not going to discuss the constitutionality of these operations. Why? Because they're a part of it. Right? No different than, they will discuss the reality that the Khazarians, who are people called JEWS, really run the Congress. Everybody knows it, but no one's supposed to say it. Right?
Okay.
And so they do it through, they'll hide it behind what they call lobbying and APAC and all that kind of stuff. But anybody in politics knows the reality. If you really want to know the political operations here, watch what they're doing over there. Watch the attitude that you see there, how they deal with people. That's a direct reflection of what? Unum sanctum. Now, so the politics is to have people think that they're separate political jurisdictions, don't they? And that they're just assisting. But politicians know that that's a colony. That's one of the last vestiges of the neo-colonial operations of Unum Sanctum. And this is why they have people always talking, quote unquote, religious, so you'll not pay attention to the politics.
And the other thing I mentioned to you,
and half of them people are atheists anyway.
and the other thing I mentioned, and you agreed with me today, was that we don't get enough into exopolitics.
Exactly.
And people don't even know.
Now let's look at this too, Dr. J. The reality. Can you prepare the people for the exopolitics, even though a lot of people go that way, when they don't even know the geopolitics? It's not unlike me discussing with you, Dr. J. What is your opinion on the operations of the underground tunnels at Denver, Colorado? And this is less than what the analysis implies. What is your analysis of what's on the dark side of the moon? How many pits or how many craters are really on the dark side of the moon, and how many settlements are there by what planetary beings, inner or outer? And then you don't even know how government is run here. Also, you're here in school at Midgard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're being tested or prepared to deal with exopolitics when you don't even know the rules of governing here. It is not unlike me saying to you, if that is the issue, not that it's not important. If they set you in the middle of the desert right now, right, or in the middle of Grand Canyon, could you make your way home? Or would you know which direction you're going? Or would you even have a consciousness of where you are? And we're not even talking about the exo, we're talking about the
geo.
You're on Midgard. How many people that's even listening to this broadcast right now know that the name of this particular earth is Midgard? We're just talking that simple. The name of this earth is Midgard, dwelling place of the humans. How many people know that? However, if we introduce an argument, say we're going to the Emerald Tablets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we're going to Septuaginta, and we go into the Sabian or Moorish history, and then start talking about the inside outsiders, right? That's always been part of our culture. The people are intrigued, yes, and amazed, but in reality, have limited relationship to it because they don't even know how to run government. And they're talking about who's rules and who don't rule, and the debates that they've had with the godships. And once you begin to study the Book of the Dead and you start studying Urantria, except you start recognizing fact by the documents that the people's concept of God is totally incorrect.
Which is,
as an example. That's an example.
Well, what I'm saying, but which is part, in my opinion, the problem, because they don't know that. There are direct influences that come from these exo positions that they're not aware of, and they have no ability to heighten their, what can I say? I don't want to call it
their cognizance or their capacity to begin to see the signs, the symbols, the allegories, reading through things and dismissing the illusions
and the actual behind. And they talk about the black nobility or different things like that. There were deeper behind the scenes actors or players that are pulling and manipulating the strings, that all of them are not what we would call terrestrial or dimensional, in that they're with us. And when you don't have those, you think everything is something that you see. It's not just flesh and blood.
That's why it's called illusionary.
Yeah, it's not just flesh and blood.
That's what it's called, referring, even in the scriptures, the illusions of the world. That's what that means.
Yeah.
But it's not a dismissal of the physical world. And this is where a lot of people don't get it. Now, this is the deal that I'm presenting to you, Dr. J. In order for the people to start dealing with the exopolitics, they must be able to deal with the geopolitics. Not aware of the geopolitics, it's almost like sending your children to grade school, and the teacher has much of the conversation talking about what job they're going to have after they come out of college and university. Not that you wouldn't mention that, but that's not where your energy should go. You should be preparing them for what? Trigonometry, calculus, right? The sciences, 7 liberal arts, to what? To prepare them to take their place among the affairs of men. And once you prepare them to take their places among the affairs of men, Now you give them a foundation to take their places among the affairs of nations. Then you give them foundation to prepare them to take their places among nation, states, and planetary interludes.
And everything is not,
Meaning it's staged. It, in principle, is one who has limited capacity or comprehension of how to govern the affairs of bodies of people at Midgard. Are they qualified to deal with the same principles on a broader scale in the exopolitical realm with the galactic confederations? That's always been here, always been a part of our politics. And so the point that I'm making, Dr. G, is not to dismiss one for the other, but to use intelligence to recognize that the fundamental rules that are really ancient of the makeup of these communications that we have been deliberately held out of.
absolutely.
And because we have not been cognizant of other degrees because we have made lower degrees more important. It's sort of like where those who know the truth have been keeping physical adult people in grade school mentality as a minor. And and training them that the minority is an identity. And they accepted that and operate from that perspective, not knowing that the minority represents mental status.
Right.
And so if you can't get them past that, what are you going to do with them with the exopolitics?
I don't know, but for those who are open to it, like melanin,
it's always
women,
been those
magic,
who have been.
Yeah, there are those that know, and like everything else, we have to start small within our own.
So now those people who are aware, right? If they care to help humanity, they have to do what? Make themselves known.
Right.
Even if they use a pseudonym to actually start sharing information. And they definitely have to go against the grain of the system, because the system's in place to do what? To bury the people, to keep the people in hell, in the tunnels of mental midgetry, not accidentally, not by them not comprehending what they're doing. It's a deliberate and a deliberated, formulated, and organized activity. Part of which is well known is called Indexus Librorum Prohibitorum, Indexus Librorum Expurgatorius. Same policy carries to this very day, and it's called demonetization, called sanctioning, it's called shutting down your communication systems, etc. But people who don't know the geopolitics, they see something new and they say, oh, my site, I was telling the truth about something about, as an example, what happened the other day. And the Secret Service the people was there pointing to a guy on the roof. They knew about this days before. They had a whole dossier on this guy. They were looking at him, etc., and stepped away from Trump. And they were actually looking at the guy, and this is 10 minutes before the incident happened. Are they possibly incompetent? Come on. You know what I mean? And so back to the earlier statement, are the people really dumb or are they naive? They keep buying the same game. They keep capitulating to things that contradict common sense. And yet they will complain about the politicians having contempt for the people in the way they respond to them or not respond to them, but yet have expectations for a grander, respectful position in relationship to themselves coming from so-called elected officials, right? Meanwhile, 90% of these same people dedicate a lot of their lives for generations analyzing the Quran, the Bible, except against the Torah, and going to tell you about what the gods do, what they don't do, the descendancies and the bloodlines, what Jesus did, when they're going to give the bite back to you and all this stuff, how God made the earth, how he didn't make it, and the stillness of the waters, and they can't even tell you what's in front of them, but they're going to tell you what's on the dark side of the moon. Now, who's going to take such a person serious? However, you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to respect them to their beliefs, because what? Beliefs have been trained to be truth. Whatever your belief is, that's what it is. And so you have people even in the same houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
That upon a test contradict each other, but yet they're in the same belief. And they keep promoting it against other people and judging them by it. Now, so the contempt that the politicians keep displaying to these people, I'm not justifying it. I'm just pointing out the reason for that contempt. And when they speak to them, they speak to them from a perspective of a very condescending position, don't they? And then the people get insulted. Oh, you're trying to insult my intelligence? Like I can't see what's happening, what party it is. And they don't even know that the Democrats are cottonwigs. We're not talking ancient dig up the earth history that it takes an archaeologist to figure this stuff out. And they all, just like you'll see them talking about mainstream media, right, today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then you can easily just look up the corporations that run the communications, and it's about 6 of them. One of lead, as an example, Lead, BlackRock, Vanguard, Sheik Street. And you start tracing who are the owners, and you'll find that they come from a particular group of people, including the bank, including the ones who run Congress. And each, as a matter of fact, each congressman or congresswoman has one of them assigned specifically to them like handlers. And it's known. It's not unknown.
And the young man, well, the shooter, it was shown that he was in a BlackRock sponsored funded commercial.
Well,
there he was.
I guarantee you all.
So,
now, we've been busy, but I guarantee you all, a lot of these corporate entities shorted stock before, in recent times, before this incident happened.
In expectation.
Which is also indicating that the situation was laid out. And how many people will still act like these things are circumstantial. Same thing with Kennedy. When he did that executive order to restore the republic, what happened within a week? Are the records public?
Still not. I don't think so.
Same thing with Martin Luther King, 33-degree Mason, when he started telling the people that they're indigenous to the land, by saying our people are refugees in their own land, which breaks his Masonic oath. How long did he last?
After, not long.
Oh, are the records public? Meaning that they made up an issue about James Earl Ray that everybody and their dog knows is not true. But that's all you have to deal with, because that's what they gave you.
True.
As I'm just saying, as an example.
That's what we have. But that's why we're grateful for people like Dr. Kia Pruitt.
Exactly.
And others that are, Lou Valentine, and others that are going to give the truth.
Now,
and us.
Yes.
We grateful for us, y'all.
Now, Dr. G.
Yes, sir.
When people take oaths of office, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is a standard protocol? They have to take the oath on that Constitution. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in relationship to this executive order 6102, where they're confiscating the gold of the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at Article 1, Section 10, upon which Franklin Delano Roosevelt took an oath. It says, no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money. Now listen to these points.
Mm-hmm.
Coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin as tender in payment of debt, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Now, you already know by the law that members of the British Accredited Registry, people know as the Bar Association, who are filial members of the Circle Church and Chancery, run from Fleet Street, England, that run all the judicial courts operating on the land in North America, etc. And how many people know that? Although that can be proven. Now, what happens with most of the people, and what did Franklin Delano Roosevelt do? Because remember, he's only representative of the corporate operatives. He's just a face, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they stole the people's finance and gave them a what? A scrip bill of credit.
Would that be the fiat dollar? Or
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah. Okay.
So now let's repeat this. No state shall enter into any treaty. Why? Because they're subordinate franchisees of the federal national constitution and treaty, which are molded together as described in its entirety in Article 6, right? So that's all contracts and agreements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution are binding for, or is it binding against the United States?
It should be for.
Against the United States. So
Oh.
that means they're a subordinate party.
Okay.
They have obligation. Article 1, Section 10, they can't grant any letters of marque or reprisal.
We're talking states now.
Yes. So the so-called congressmen and senators represent the states, and they've been doing that to what? People here, and they've been doing that to other nation states.
Economic hitman.
There you go. Hold on. They can't coin money, which means they can't create their own counterfeit outside of what? They can't make anything but gold and silver coin, a tender and payment of debt. So what's the lawful money of the United States?
Gold
It's right
and silver.
there, Article 1, Section 10.
Gold and silver.
It's not mysterious, is it?
Nope.
Does GOLD and SILVER coin end up being something abstract that they call a bit?
No.
That's an abstract?
No.
That has no measure that it can be weighed against. What they're telling you is worth so many dollars?
Nope.
Coinage Act. Now, we're not going through this at the moment, but those of you who are listening, what is the weight of a dollar? Because it has a weight. And if it's in your hand, you can count them, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
So a dollar is a gold or silver coin by weight. Does it say that a dollar is a Federal Reserve note of a private foreign corporate entity that has no price discovery, that fluctuates? Or is a dollar in grams and measure by weight of gold, and is usually 20-1 with silver in relationship to the grams that make up the dollar? Let me see your hand. There's the Bitcoin. How much is there?
Nothing.
How much does it weigh?
Nothing.
Why is it called a bit?
Because it's a.
What is a coin? Because it is. What is a coin?
A coin is gold or silver.
All right. Does it have weight?
What you just put in my hand?
Does it? There's
No.
a Bitcoin.
Oh, no.
So can you drop if you drop a Bitcoin, will it ring?
No.
Does it have a sound?
No.
Is it weighted by grams and measure?
No.
then it can't be $1. So they're lying to you to your face. See why they have contempt for the people? If someone said they got Bitcoin, right?
Mhm.
And then I said, oh, you do? Let me see it. Can you show it?
Mhm.
In the law of contract, isn't it substance for substance?
I would think so.
Is it substance for substance?
Yes.
All right. Is Bitcoin, which is an electronical abstract, fungible by virtue of weights and measures?
You're asking me, is it? No.
I'm just saying, we're just using logical questions.
No.
All right, this is a coin. This is a coin. Show me what other instrument that they have that's a coin.
I don't have, well, I got
What?
just a coin. Coin is a
Oh,
coin.
well, what does this say here?
Gold and silver. So
Anything.
make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts.
So if you don't transfer this, is the debt paid?
No,
Why? Because they can't do what?
they cannot emit bills of credit.
Oh, so now these people have been issued bills of credit by members of the Circle Church and Chancery who are holding offices, congressmen and senators, and that they're told that they owe a debt for this credit. But they want this back from you.
Mhm.
And therefore they're confiscating the people's gold. They're giving the people imaginary debt and stealing their actual substance and then charging them with the debt that's implied with the theft from themselves.
So what they're talking about now with the
Now you're
collapse
talking
of the
feudal law.
so with the collapse of the petrodollar, with BRICS.
So let's explain what it is.
Yeah, what I'm going to say though, what they are talking about in place of it, the CDs, what are they called?
Central bank
CB
digital currency.
CBDCs.
All right.
CBDC, is that any different?
What did Sister Kia talk about today relative to electronic interferences? What happened with you when you went to the institution to try to make what they would refer to as normal
Transaction.
financial transfers?
Well, when I went in there, certain things weren't. I couldn't transfer funds between my accounts.
Why? All right, now let's get back to
because
basics.
their system.
Let's get back to basics.
Okay.
Here. All right. Now, computer goes off. What's that got to do with this?
Nothing.
It's substance for substance, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So now, glass of water, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to give you bit water. So now the bit water is worth 10 of these to 1. And then the electric, you have a glitch here, and all of a sudden you don't have none.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The fact that they were able to give that off is an act of treason and feudal law operations right in front of the people's faces. Now, for the few people that would complain, what did they do? They arrested them, they harassed them, and they used so-called government agencies to disappear certain people and refer to them as anti-government. And the people did not come to their aid.
Are we talking about when?
In general,
okay,
on different levels.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, anyone that commanded enforcement of the Constitution was dubbed a terrorist enemy of the state. Sovereign citizen fictions and a whole bunch of other things, weren't they?
Yeah.
And these people who claim to be government are clearly in violation of the Constitution for the United States upon which they took an oath. And yet they will take the lives and the liberties of people for not submitting to their feudal law operations, and the people didn't rebel, did they?
No.
That means they're ready for capitulation. So then you have, what does that demonstrate, Dr. J? What did they say about the people?
Which people? Or what does what say about
relative to that capitulation?
from a standpoint of their mentality or the people's
No,
power or lack thereof?
They had another one for them.
Oh,
It's called Executive Order 11490.
King Alfred. Yeah.
So you have another executive order. So you can see this executive order, that executive order, and the ones before that are all related. Same game.
It's just an add-on. It's just an add-on.
They just changed the name to make people think that the operations ended, which is what I'm saying.
Okay.
When you're aware of the geopolitics, the exopolitics, you're not blinded by this. Why? Because it has no standing. Not whether they argue it or not, it's because you already know the rule. It has no standing. It's ab initio, having no standing.
So what is
it's a nullity.
What's the point in taking? Now you well, I guess what you're going to say. I already know the answer. Well, let's taking one's funds out of, if you have funds in these banking institutions, are you suggesting that everything?
Now let's slow back. Let's slow back. Because we got to clear this up.
Okay.
Because this is why we're doing this.
All right.
Number one, what are funds?
Well, taking your fiat.
Stop.
We're taking your stuff.
Stop. I want you to pay attention.
But
you just changed up, which means you're not grounded.
Well, because
stop.
Stop. It's not money.
Remember, it's not for us. It's
I get it.
For the people.
I get it.
What is this?
This is silver.
All right. What is this by law?
Money.
All right. So are funds money? Why are you pausing?
No. But
why are you pausing?
Are you talking? You asking me for a question? No.
We're doing all right now.
Funds are not money.
Oh, stop. But, so therefore, it is a bill of credit which cannot be emitted.
Okay.
Oh. So that means it's a contract of debt with no price discovery, unquestioned, can't be held, can't be measured, can't be weighed, and therefore has no foundation of substance for substance, therefore is unconscionable, therefore is unconstitutional. We're talking law of contract.
Yeah.
But yet, the law can't impair the obligation of contract.
But
starting with this one.
Listen, but has trading power to the extent that we get.
What does that mean? This has trading power.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
All right. This has trading power.
Okay.
I'll give you this for your sneaks.
We don't have ink pens and microphones in the bank.
I'll give this for your sneaks.
No, but I'm just saying.
How about that beautiful turban you got on?
No.
How about if I give you this used envelope?
That's not used.
Or they don't have a stamp. That doesn't matter, because if you're willing to trade, that's called bartering. However, the will to barter, unconstitutional instrumentality, is the right of private contract, but has no right of public contract. Are we clear?
I get it.
This is the public contract.
Right. So what differentiates public from private? I mean, so
public is the obligation under threat of treason and death of someone holding public office because they're dealing with sovereign power or the power of life and death, and the capacity to remove the liberties and the rights and the inheritances of humans, which is totally unconstitutional, divine and or civil.
Okay.
Therefore, it's limited and it's specific. This is what we got to keep in mind, Dr. G.
I get that.
The law is specific. Once they get you to start rationalizing, saying something other than this is the money, you have agreed to the treason and therefore have consented to their corruption. This is why you don't call it what it's not. What is it by law? Those instrumentalities or those fiat instrumentalities are known by law as private commercial paper.
Right. So commercial, private commercial paper.
Credit not founded in lawful money. In law, that's referred to as what? Starts with the word C. Starts with the letter C.
Contract.
It's called counterfeit.
I get it. I get that, surviving Madam Morris. But here's the deal. I'm saying for whatever, and I know I'm being vague, but just let me say this.
Yes,
let me say this on my platform, not you, to you. I'm saying whatever it is, whether it's fake or whatever, that some of us still have in their banks, right? What should be done with it in order to move ourselves away and not suffer the greatest loss?
What did we always say?
Silver, get gold.
Now, it's clear, meaning that it doesn't need to be figured out. Now, hold on.
Well, the reason why I'm saying is because not everyone is accepting it, even though
we ain't talking about what they accept. Right now, we're talking about law and not law.
So let me say something. Let me ask you something. You don't have any fiat in your position?
Yes, I do.
You're not going to.
But I don't call it money.
Well, whatever it is, you don't. So
hold on.
What should we do with the fiat?
Now, the fiat is you supposed to do what? What have you been doing for the last 5 years with people to help them out?
Been trying to get them to get silver and in cases gold to invest. Yeah, it's just, and I've done it, and people are doing it.
Now, hold on. Now, why haven't the politicians been telling people that?
Because they don't want people to.
Why? No, because they're the source of the treason. See, we got what I'm trying to do with you, for the sake of the people, is not be disagreeable or even to contest your position. It's for us to start speaking honestly, not to recognize that by habit we are responding dishonorably because that's the way we're unconsciously thinking immediately to give credibility to what is a known fraud,
right?
And thus having difficulty to analyze and regurgitate common reasoning to aid and support the people to get out of the forced servitude under the fiat that everybody has accepted as money, knowing it's not money.
Right.
And rather than admit that it's counterfeit, we keep talking about its fungibility or its tradability, which is not the subject matter. It's almost like someone arguing with you and me right now, you know, about you have a right to children, I have a right to children, therefore I have a right to get pregnant. Now, that's not nature. I'm not missing anything because I don't get pregnant. Why? Because divine made a balance, a yin and a yang. You don't flip it. But you can sit around and talk about flipping it. But then you can't call that law because they're not divine law. It's a counter to divine law. Right? So when you look at constitutional principles, what make constitutional principles unique is that they're based, for the most part, in principles of divine law, not just an idea of man written. So you're coming from maxims, or what you call things that are founded in nature. Is the gold and silver found in nature?
Yes.
It doesn't have substance.
Yes.
Now, in honor to principles of justice, for compound thousands of years, all over Midgard, in trade, the rule of the gold and silver as money, or being the money, is a standard worldwide for trade to support the natural right of barter. Whereas I come to you, you've baked some rolls, and I want some rolls, but you don't necessarily want the rice that I have in trade and barter, because you don't need the rice. However, you may need some work done to your house. I trade you some work done to your house, and you give me some rolls and hook me up with a meal too. And then give me some other rolls to take home. By agreement, that's called the contract. Okay. Substance for substance. Because we're talking about established rule. This is what I want to make clear. We're talking about the established rules of civilization and why they exist. And when the breach is done, why the consequences or the punishment is so severe. Because it tears society down. It makes, when you're not at liberty with your own property or the fruits of your own labor, that's theft. Shall thou steal or shall thou not steal?
Thou shalt not steal.
Shall thou murder or not murder?
Thou shalt not murder.
Rules mod right on up to the day. Organized, civilized societies go by these rules. They may word them different, but they're harmonic pretty much all around the world. The gold and the silver is the money. The private commercial paper of the Jesuit order is not money. Even when they're talking among themselves, as an example, even though they eliminated one of their own named James Traficant. When he made the speech on the floor of the House, what did he expose that later got him neutralized? They call it an accident. Everybody knows it's not. All right. No different than some of the people of the cotton wigs are trying to say that that Trump staged with a water gun what happened the other day. Literally saying it's staged, right? That he did it to himself, right? Now you can accept that, but does it make it valid because they're saying it? Question, does it make it valid because they're saying it?
No.
Does it make it valid because they're telling people that Federal Reserve notes are money when you know that that's private commercial paper and it's even documented, which means you don't need somebody to document it to tell you that that's what it is. Because this tells you what the money is. And these people take an oath on this. Justify other than that. Now, if I have this, if you go to a bank, right? And the bond redeems this, right? What do they give you? Substance. But the bond is only for record of evidence of the obligation to the substance. That's all it serves. When you forget that, which apparently the fact that you even have to go through this analysis, that then took all the people's silver and gold and the people ain't even arguing. And then trick them into, don't even know that Bitcoin is a Trojan horse that buy time. Totally invisible. Because that's a coin. Now, where did the bit come from? And how much of this coin can you take? And how can the bit be worth more than this? All right, here's the bit. And you say, what? How much is that? Well, it's on my computer. What do you mean it's on your computer? Can I see how many it is? So I'll pull something up and I say, there it is. You see a number. So give me all that and I'll transfer this over there. Would you go for it? But people have gone. People have gone for it, and we've been trained in it for so long that we keep on claiming it to be something it's not. We are, from their position, ready for capitulation. They've done it. Problem is that the rest of the world has not accepted it. Are we clear? So they're sending those instrumentalities back to them. That's called what? What are they calling it now? De-dollarization, right? What is the de-dollarization? is that they're sending back those bills of credit that all represent debt. They're not the debt. They represent debt and an obligation. However, by law, they couldn't emit bills of credit or issue anything but gold and silver coin for payment of debt. Therefore, for all the movement of the private commercial paper, no debt could be created, could it? Now you understand in the Clearfield Doctrine, United States Code of Law, 95 subsection A and B. What's that deal with, Dr. G?
I do not know.
It deals with the fiction of the debt belongs to United States Corporation Company and not to you. That's their private commercial paper that has what? No price discovery because it has no substance. It's totally imaginary. But they want this back from you. And so they've been going around the world. They set up what? Over 900 outposts or military bases in other countries. What were their major mission? Under the guise of moral, political balance, they've been stealing their gold, silver, diamonds, and other resource materials. What happened in, I think, around 75 with Charles de Gaulle in relationship to the Federal Reserve and New York Harbor? What did the president of France do in around 75? I think that was the year. What did they do? They had a couple of ships that they sent to the harbor. What was on them ships? Does anyone in the audience know? And what was the demand? As a matter of fact, it might have been a little earlier than that. Yeah, it was a little earlier than that. It was probably late 60s. What did Charles de Gaulle do that caused the praetor for the United States Corporation Company, who was Richard Nixon, to reinforce also what Roosevelt had done with Executive 6102? What did they do? How did they describe the same activities? They said they went off the gold standard, didn't they? Mm-hmm. What did de Gaulle do? They brought ships to the harbor, warships to the harbor, and they were filled with U.S. Treasury bonds and the so-called dollars that they had, and wanted substance for the non-substance. So what happened to Fort Knox?
Got empty.
Did
it empty out?
It was so low. Why? Because they have been printing counterfeit instrumentalities against the Constitution and against the people and selling it via their private corporate entity known as the United States Corporation Company, pretending to be the national or pretending to be the people, and implying that the debt was the people's and is really their private corporation. And they've done it to rape the world. Are we clear? Which means they've been getting stuff from around the world for free and demanding substance back for nothing. And then using the military to enforce the implied obligation of contract. This is why you have the endless wars. Are we clear? When you know that and you know their mode of operation, do you look at them the same way? Do you?
No.
All right. We've tolerated. Does that mean that the rest of the world is going to tolerate it?
They're not.
All right. So the hitman then already hit us, and they've been going around hitting the rest of the world. How long do you think? It went on for quite a while, didn't it? So now they're dumping those U.S. treasuries, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a cigar.
What are those U.S. Treasuries? They're bills of credit. By law, were they to emit bills of credit?
No.
Didn't they take an oath that they weren't going to do that? So how have they been able to maintain this criminality with no pushback? Now you understand what Eisenhower was talking about, the congressional, and why they don't say congressional, industrial military complex. In other words, they literally have been using Jesuit army to rob the entire world under the guise of debt by credit on non-substance until it got to the point that it has corrupted the whole world. And in order to save themselves, they have to do what? They have to nationalize their resources or they're going down the tubes. So when you see that geopolitics, you don't let politicians control the narrative and talking about your funds, which is on their ledgers. When you issue that substance to them, what do? They do double bookkeeping. That's a fact that's known. It goes on their ledger as an asset of the bank, not an asset of yours. So when you say my account, my funds, mean that you don't understand what that relationship is. Which means when the substance must be produced to satisfy these bills of credit that they've issued, they're going to take your stuff. Why? Because that's a bank asset, not your account. How long is it going to take people to figure this out? And what is everyone fearing? That they won't be caught in the line of the musical chairs when they see the chairs being pulled away, which is what's happening. So what are they doing? What did they do the other day with Donald Trump, who was a threat to the system, which I've been saying for what? Years that he's assigned. His position exposes the system. People who are aligned with that corrupt system don't like Trump. I'm not saying that they should. I'm looking at the chess pieces because I'm not looking at it like the average person is looking at it. I'm looking at it metaphysically. But these people claim to be spiritual and metaphysical, and they're really not, which means they're easy to be deceived because they're faking themselves. We know we've gotten so used to fakery that we become part of the fakery, and we don't like what the fakery does, but we keep supporting the fakery. And now the fakery is turning in on us, and we're worried. So what was Dr. Pruitt showing the people? With an emergency meeting, bringing their attention to reality, knowing that if they don't face reality, they're going to get caught in the trap. And once you see the pattern of the traps being snapped, it's already on, which means it's not going to revert. It's going to continue. So what have we been telling people for years, Dr. J?
What if
take the fiat out those banks, buy tangible hard asset, or put it into something and create a trust and protect it from them, because they're going to do the same daggone thing, steal everything from the people. Why? Because they're organized criminals. They're not your government. However, they're holding government office. By us, the people, denying that allows them to operate. And when they saw the threat that Trump is for real, implying that he's going to help restore, they'll say it, make America great again. We already know that's a misstatement, but we also know what it implies. So in order to make America great, because America's come from the north to the top, to the south. from Chile all up to Greenland. That's America. So what would make it great again? Enforce the Constitution and treaty. That has been breached because that's what got us in trouble, isn't it? That's why they did what? The other day. Because he's been consistent in certain operations. And when he did those executive orders that you mentioned, it was counter to the system. It essentially implied that persons committing treason were now under threat. And the whole system is operating under misprision of treason. That's why no one likes Trump with the parties. Are we clear? Whether Republican Party or Democratic Party. So you don't look at personalities, do you? You look at principle, don't you?
Absolutely.
So now you understand political motive, don't you? So you get caught up in what your personal feelings are about Trump, or do you get recognized that what you have is a cabal making a counter move, make sure no one gets in that office to undo the feudal autocracy that has been fronted as the Republic falsely since 1871. That's how they're looking at it. Or do you get the point, Dr. J? The people can't fix anything until they accept the reality of the geopolitics. And do what? Condemn it, dismiss it, command its dissolution. If they don't, what does it represent? It represents economic collapse for themselves, who thought they're beneficiaries of it. Now, while the people may be passive, are nations of the earth who bought them bonds going to be passive and then collapse while the masses are playing dumb? Or you gotta argue with them for half an hour for them to admit that this is a coin. And they're going to tell you that some abstract thing on their computer is the money. And rationalize that someone accepted it, therefore it's money. So who's going to lose? Those people who refuse to face reality are the ones that are going to lose all of their estates. What you're dealing with is the largest wealth transfer in world history. It's that big, literally. And they're looking at the semantics of whether this is the money or not. There it is. They took an oath on this. Did they take an oath on the Federal Reserve?
What, if anything, does
Please
that
answer
happen?
that question first.
That's
Did they take an oath on the Federal Reserve?
no,
Or did they take an oath on the Constitution for the United States?
on the Constitution.
What's the Constitution for the United States say?
That the only thing is money is gold and silver. What does that have to do with foreign currencies? Does that because they don't have the Constitution? So,
But those principles are universal. What has happened is that they, by buying the U.S. Treasuries, they bought the debt. They bought the debt, the credit, the bills of credit, which have no substance. They only had a war machine behind it. So when you start seeing, this is how you understand the geopolitics.
but that's not what I'm saying. Before you get into the next question, Dr. Key and I had a conversation yesterday with regard to the fact that she sent me something that says that the Bolivar, right? So the Bolivar just revalued from 36 cents to $36. Right. I was asking her
now.
In relation to what 36? What are 36?
That relates is what I'm getting ready to
$36 for
so
those.
What constitutes the dollar? See, now you got to. Now you're talking about price discovery.
What I'm asking, are you talking about U.S. or are you talking what is it? What does it? Because they're saying.
So that means you're talking about a standard of credibility on a known price discovery. See, what they've allowed the people to do, or what they have encouraged the people to do, is keep talking about dollars without telling people the truth of what a dollar is. how many? Just pull up on a computer. Dollar. What constitutes a dollar? How many grams of gold or silver constitutes a dollar? That's the measure. How many grams
You don't have it in there right.
of gold constitutes a dollar? Gram is a unit for weighing gold used in jewelries in United States. 1 gram, 0.03215 troy ounce, 1 troy ounce equal 34, 104,199,066,874 grams. Today, Friday, 19th July 2024 in the United States, 1 gram of gold, 77.66 US equals $1 US. So that's your measure. That's your price discovery.
Mm-hmm.
So if they tell you that Bitcoin now is worth $1,026, right? And then tomorrow is worth 0. Then the next week is worth 17. Then it's going up the next week because that's the price discovery. 77.66 grams, right? 1 gram of gold equals 77.66 US dollar. That's your price discovery. How many of them y'all got? If you have none, what happens to the fiat that you placed in their trust in the bank? It goes to 0. What is the processes that they cover up the theft of the gold with? They cover it up with the word inflation. What does inflation really mean? It means theft of the people's gold by people pretending to be government. That's what it means. How many of you have 1 gram of gold that equals the dollar? So that's the dollar. So anything else that they told you is what? Is not the money and is not a dollar. So they train you to keep calling their private commercial paper a dollar, which implies an oral agreement. But yet there is no substance. But what does the law say, Dr. G? They can't make anything but gold or silver coin for payment in debt. This is why they did the Trojan horse of Bitcoin. They're buying time. Why? How much weight does Bitcoin have? How much is the weight of a bit? And where's the coin? Where is the coin that they claim a bit is a part of? Because bit means a piece. Say, cut me off a piece. Pieces of 8. You know, silver pieces of 8. Break me off a piece. How much does the piece weigh? Because there's your price discovery. You see, Dr. G, what I'm saying, what I'm placing before all of us in this analysis is that these people are pirating the people right in their faces and creating arguments in support of what they're doing right in front of people's faces and getting the people to argue it. And the people themselves don't know they're getting ready to be thrown on the bus because they keep calling them our government. No different than the Congressional College decides who's going to be praetor or senator or any daggone body else, and these people keep talking about their right to vote. Right in their faces. So is it any confusion as to why these politicians have total contempt for the people and why they treat the people with such disdain? And then we keep making excuses. Well, the people don't understand. And you know, because it was taught differently. And we keep just defending the ignorance rather than speaking against it, which means that we are what? Consenting. So the point that I'm making, Dr. J, you know it's a fraud, but don't call it anything outside of fraud. Because when you accept a fraud in oral contract, you imply it being something is not. So they do that to trick the people to say that the people what? Capitulated. This is what they're talking about in King Alfred. This is what they say. They encroach on the people's rights. Executive order. Right?
What about foreign currencies that are backed with gold?
That's what's happening. That's what's creating the problem here.
Okay, so when people,
because that is based on law. In other words, this is what you have being that's coming before the people's face. You have a small group of people around the world that are finally standing up for truth and standing up for the law. And the majority have been what? Lawless. And then accusing people who stand for law as being terrorists or anti-government. And they've been getting away with it because of both the ignorance of the people and with others thinking they're going to get a benefit supporting what they know to be a fraud and pretending that they don't understand that a coin is not abstract. They're going to tell you that this is digital. Because after all, it's an illusion. It's a hologram. And they don't even understand that the people introduced that argument to justify what they knew was coming, is that the world is not accepting them to create holographic reality with AI and tell you that you have something that you don't have. And act like it's some kind of spiritual philosophy for you to accept it. And then when you finally figured out they plan to eliminate your physicality, it's called genocide. You see people being genocided in their families and they're talking about, oh, don't worry about that. They're stepping on my baby's head because it's just a hologram. It's an illusion. Once you understand that psychology, you understand what's taking place in Palestine right now, why they're justifying what's going on. Why? Because it's that same body of people that run the banks here, that really run that governing body of the United States Corporation Company, that our people keep on, out of desired ignorance, willful ignorance, keep saying this is the country. Now, go back and talk about your experience and let's analyze that, Dr. J.
What experience?
Oh, you went to this institution and it's not your bank, it's an institution, and you're trying to transfer funds, which is not money, from within your an account that you considered yours, which is really on their ledgers, not yours, and finding difficulty. And it seems like a contradiction because it's supposed to be your account. And why can't you transfer funds in your account for your benefit? Because they're claiming it, because that means they're bailing in. So when you understand the system, you understand what's going on. Now, Dr. Kia was making mention on these so-called glitches, these abstract glitches. It's even affecting what? Airplane flights, bank records, hospitals, schools, other levels of AI. How much does those weigh? How much weight you got in the bank? How many coins is in there?
Excuse me. No coins.
Oh, see, this is the point. They're operating from reality, but they're promoting fiction.
I was able to make a withdrawal from their teller machine, but I was unable to do anything electronically online between accounts. So
now, so what does the electronics represent? Digital bookkeeping. Is it real or is it abstract?
Oh, it's abstract.
Is it real or it's abstract?
It's abstract.
All right. So does it have weight in grams? Can it be measured?
No.
Why? How quick can it disappear? All right. Here, let me give you your coin back. Still there while we had this conversation. Rule of contract, substance for substance. Now, keep in mind, Dr. G, when Roosevelt did the executive order 60102 or 6102, right? Remember, why did they file these articles of incorporation 25? Which means you're in a 4.5 to 5 year span that Roosevelt did the bank holiday of their incorporation. Why do you think that correlates within a 5 year period? It correlates that they were bankrupted.
That's almost 8 years.
It implies that they were bankrupted. So he did what? He confiscated the people's finance to refund their private corporation. It went bankrupt.
When they confiscated the gold.
Thank you. Which means they warred on the people. And the people arguing about whether they have money or not. There it is.
They took your money. They stole the money.
Let's deal with some of the questions to see. Now, keep in mind, although we're not going over word for word, because really we're dealing with commentary on analyzing what was actually done. Because we're looking at a feudal autocracy in operation while trying to rationalize the conversation according to constitutional principle, while steeped in democratic jargon, which is another mask of the feudal autocracy. And what I'm saying, Dr. G, is what makes things so confusing is that we're talking the mask, consciously and unconsciously. Therefore, can we have solution? Can you bring solution when the people aren't dealing with the reality of what money is?
No, it'd be difficult.
Now, how do you dismiss the debt of the private corporation of Britain, because that's the private debt of, because these are the owners: Lewis H. Gunther, Samuel B. Howard, and Arthur V. Britton. Those are the corporate owners, and whoever inherited the corporate operations under this. And you all can look up those names and you'll see their birth date and their demise date. And so you start looking at who are the corporate heads of the different corporations that evolved out of this by what is known as corporate descendancy, and you'll see who owns the United States. And what you start discovering is that all of these people are hiding behind a certain religion, claiming to be somebody that they're not, making moral arguments that are totally a distraction and totally void. And now that they're caught, they're willing to actually murder people to cover up their criminality. And they open up the borders to muddy the water to justify the loss of people's accounts which is happening right now, those were signals that they're doing a bail-in. The fact that they're not making it public is by virtue of them knowing that they're criminals and knowing that the general public hasn't caught on yet. So they're going to do things that create a crisis to cover up their criminality. But they also know that Fleet Street runs the court system, so they already know that the persons who are administrative clerks pretending to be judges are not going to issue any or act on any laws that protect the people from organized criminals, because they're part of the system. That's what they've been operating on. So what does that leave for the common people to do, Dr. G? What's happening with nations around the world? What are they doing? As an example, what are they doing in Burkina Faso now, Mali, Niger? Aren't they nationalizing their resources? Aren't they kicking out those military bases that they know are part of the Jesuit army? That's stealing their gold and silver?
Right.
What did Charles de Gaulle do when he sent them warships to New York Harbor? That's France.
I know. He said they sent the.
He commanded their gold back.
Right.
For these fake fund notes that are all unconstitutional. That's why Nixon went off the gold standard. What's happening now? What was you saying earlier about other so-called currencies? What did you mention earlier?
They're gold backed. They're back in their.
Now when you talk the gold, now you got to go back to not just the fact that they're gold, but to the grams by weights and measures that determines what a dollar is in the first instance. You must identify it.
This is a question. Oh, where did I go?
I didn't get what you were saying.
Why would they sell you real gold if they know the notes are fiat?
This is mainly, all right, so this is what they intend not to do. They intend to BS you until the system collapses. They will refer to it as kicking the can down the road. So expect them to do stuff to the people. So what they're going to do, they're going to award certain families that claim to be certain religions on their patent to do biological warfare on you, to reduce your capacity to keep breathing, so you'll have another patented virus put on you. Like say COVID-12.5 as an example, if necessary, then one after that. So you look for things like that because you know that they know that they're what? Traitors who are actually warring on the people. And the people clearly are so naive, they refuse to accept that that's what's happening. Which is again why we're having this conversation. And their denial would make them what, Dr. G? Easier victims, won't it? Why? Because they're not doing things that indicate awareness that they're under attack. So anyone that puts anything else into their bank system is what? A fool. Those are trading vouchers. So what do? You trade for what you can get for them while you can before they go to zero. And whatever you already have should have already been in trust to stop them from stealing that too, which is what they're going to do. As long as they're what? In power. Now you understand what happened to Trump the other day? Because it threatens that platform. They had to test to see whether he was sincere or not. And they pretty much determined that, yes, he may sound like he's out to lunch, but he kind of sincere. So what happens is that if them executive orders that Trump issued, was that 16 and 17 that he issued those executive orders, Dr. G?
Well, I don't
What happens to
exactly
the traders?
treason.
What did Dr. Pruitt say today? Oh, that's an interesting gesture. So therefore, situation is more serious than people are taking it on the surface, isn't it?
Yeah.
And because people are in denial doesn't change that reality, does it? Meaning also, as long as other nations were buying the debt, the fraud could continue. Now you understand what we mentioned the last time when we talked about Nippon and the threats that were put on Japan for dumping treasuries to save the yen. Those are signals that the rest of the world are acting on this information. That's what I'm saying, Dr. G. And we are here still debating non-debatable issues. Meaning that we're out of cycle of time. We need to pay attention to what's going on in the greater geopolitics so that we're not sacrificed in the process while transition is taking place, which all indicators are it's already on. It's happening, meaning it's not going to happen. It's happening. People being asleep, willful or unwillful, is not going to change that reality, as uncomfortable as it may be, as threatening as it may be. So it's sort of like, like this storm that just came, what they call a barrel.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, well, we got a kind of a rough storm here, and this is what's guaranteed. It may not end up being a 4, but what it's going to do is create massive damage. And in your major state jurisdictions where they're bound to hit, all insurance companies are going to have to raise their rates. And according to GDP, that most people that were even in middle class, less more small, or what you call lower class economics, will not even be able to afford the insurance rates. Forget the mortgage costs. So what does that mean also? It means that the major industries that people count on for their so-called jobs themselves will be running for cover, which means they're going to be closing down more businesses under whatever excuse they make. And so that's going to be more people out of JOB, and all the prices of things will be going up because the Federal Reserve operatives are going to be creating inflation in order to cover their own butts, which means they're going to crash the economy. They needed a crisis to justify it. It's what's happening with this fake electronics, as if it just showed up out of the clear blue sky. So what do you do when now it's not new, what we've been telling people for years.
You've been telling people to purchase silver,
take their
fiat out, take the fiat out the bank, and
so
transfer
what's
what you don't need.
What's going to happen to people who are conscious? They're going to run the banks. And then people who haven't listened, who want to play dumb, even though it's still accepted as fungible. Because remember, the value is the fungibility representing the fruits of your labor, not being the fruits of your labor. However, they are only vouchers in relationship to GDP. But once that's not accepted, they go to zero. It's what people don't understand.
So if you got a whole bunch of fiat under your mattress, it may end up turning.
Even though it goes down, you can at least maybe get a loaf of bread. If it's with them, you're not going to have it to do anything with, because they're going to do what? They're going to do what is known as a bail-in, because it's theirs first. It's an asset of the bank, it's accounted to you secondarily under maritime admiralty jurisdiction, which means in the middle of the ocean. and will be declared lost at sea. And they'll take it. They keep it simple. But if you have it in your hand, even though it is being devalued, what can you do with it?
Use it as trade.
You can at least serve it to your purpose until it is accepted as worthless. Now it's no good to you at all. But if you don't have it in your hand, you have nothing. What is the rule in contract law? If it's not in your hand, you don't possess it. You don't have it. Now, let me go into Executive Order 11490, giving support to the very thing that we're talking about. Right? So the economics model, this is their model. And this is not new, Dr. G. But remember, this is 69, right? When it's issued to the public.
Right.
However, we're talking about the 25, right? And 33, right? So economics as a social energy science has as a first objective the description of the complex way in which any given unit of resources is used to satisfy some economic want. And they call it the Leontief matrix. That's what they refer to it as. This first objective, when it is extended to get the most product from the least of limited resources, comprises that objective of general military and industrial logistics, known as operations research, socio-simplex method of linear programming. The Harvard Economic Research Project, 1948, was an extension of World War II operations research. Its purpose was to discover the science of controlling an economy. At first, the American economy, and then the world economy. It was felt that with sufficient mathematical foundation and data, it would be nearly as easy to predict the control and trajectory of a projectile. Such has proven to be the case. Moreover, the economy has been transferred or transformed into a guided missile on target. Now, tell me they haven't approached this from a military logistical perspective. Already planned.
Yeah.
So what are they admitting to in the Executive Order 11490? That they weaponized it. It was always a weapon. So they're not analyzing this. They're presenting the foundation of their operation, their mode of operations. People's awareness of this or not doesn't change that reality, does it?
No.
But once known, what burden does that put on you, on the being? If you're being informed about something that you had no knowledge of before, what does that mean? That means you have pre-knowledge now. Now what you do with that knowledge, isn't that up to you?
Oh, yes.
Comfortable or not comfortable, it's still up to you, isn't it? But even with Executive Order 11490, even though in general it was not for the public, it's documented, isn't it? So that means it's not an unknown equation. So logistically, all politicians know this because it is given to all of them. And the major targets of these war operations, they literally named them. They literally named them. The problem that they have is that it's affecting those that weren't supposed to be thrown under the bus. Now, would you like to comment on that, Dr. G?
No. I would like to say that we hope that you all will come out, to those of you who can, on next Friday to be with us in person here at the House of Real Awakening.
And we can get into more refined detail, because you already know we can't In other words, if some things that if we mentioned, you already know that they would start glitching the site, if you get the point. And again, even as we talked about before, Dr. G, this is why I didn't take the opportunity to start talking about the elimination event of the other day. All right. Because I already knew what it was for.
All right, so I'm just going to put this up while you're talking. Next Friday, July 26th at 7 p.m. Doors open at 6:30. We hope to see you all. We're so grateful for those who come out. I mean, shout out to our sister, Alexandria, came all the way from Minnesota, right, and others. But we will be here. Well, we will be at House of Reawakening Minds next Friday and hope to see you. Anything else you want to say before we bid them a good evening?
Islam, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Badi Makum, Bonabot.
Yeah, and we apologize if we were not able to get to your questions, but perhaps those of you who come.
Also, as an interjection, Dr. G, while you're looking up the War Tax Act in around 1917, also look at the Trading with the Enemy Act, same year, and you'll comprehend the politics that are operating right now.
Yeah.
But it also gives you insight.
What else you brought up was the act against the what is it? They're making the
against patents and copyrights.
Over
6,000. So keep in mind, this is one of the advantages in why the corporate operatives, United States Corporation Company, has protected the corporations, is because they've been stealing the intellectual property of people for the last century anyway, which has given them the upper hand. This is why you'll see them start a war, say with China or in Africa or on the islands here in America or in South America, to stop the people from doing anything that improves the condition of the common people, because it's against unum sanctum policy. The people don't know that when these new so-called inventions and technologies come out, that they're actually ancient technologies. They're not new. And they have been deliberately held back, which means that these people are consciously attacking humanity at large. Now you're getting into the exopolitics. But until you don't understand the geopolitics, you can't counter the exo. It's sort of like if you can't clean your own house, don't talk about cleaning the neighborhood.
One last thing I want to say is that for those of you who support us, we thank you immensely. However, we're having an issue. They mess with our Cash App now. Now we can't send or receive anything via Cash App. So we'll apologize, but we just ask that you would please send your support via our PayPal. Don't know when Cash App starts to investigate why they think they should shut you down. They never get back to you. And so here we go again with that. But we hope that you will support us, because it does.
That's called expurgatorious.
Yeah, that's the way we're being targeted by, trying to. But anyway, we are here, and we love you and we appreciate you all.
And also, you understand why we had to hit on certain things and beat around the bush, hoping that you catch on and do some research. And we mentioned a few things that you do some points of reference yourself, so that you don't get sanctioned.
And some of you when asking about that book that I was sharing the last time we were on. It says it's called "Be the One to Execute Your Trust" by David Robinson. I did a lot of reading from that the last time we were together 2 weeks ago. This is the book. You see it. So I think you can get this on Amazon. And like I said, I always like to be able to share whatever we can when we find it has good information. Yeah, that it.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate y'all, and even though y'all try to drag me, not all of y'all try to drag me in the chat, but I'm not. I'm cool. I'm tough. With my arm is tough. Okay, still love y'all. All right.
Mhm.
So we appreciate you, and we out of here. Let me kind of put this up because we want you to remember to show up if you can next week.
The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what's true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living the life I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living the life I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.